Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Living Stones podcast with Amoya Rowe, where we love Jesus Christ and read the Bible. Today, we are talking about chapter 5 of Genesis, the family of Adam. You should have read your Bible. At this point, you should know that is expected of you. So where we got off last time, we were talking about Cain and Abel, the chapter 4 that introduced the first murder in the Bible. But we also talked about Abel being the first shepherd and Cain and his offering and why it wasn't respected in comparison to Abel. And we also talked about how the world was getting more evil, starting out with Lamech, which was the great grandson. I was thinking if another great goes in there, but I think it's 3. Grandson of Adam. And we got a quick little glimpse into Enosh, who is the son of Seth. Seth is the son who was appointed. He was a appointed seed, is what the Bible calls him, after Cain had killed Abel. Seth was the appointed seed that in a kind of way replaced what Abel represented. He would be the next protagonist in the Cain and Abel story following the death of Abel. And so let's jump into the family of Adam. This is important. I think mainly because genealogy matters to God. Family units matter to God. God is big and he moves in generations, and things that he starts right now in you might not, God willing, you do, but even if you don't live to see the fruits of it, I think it's so incredible and miraculous how God uses the seeds that he's planted now in your generation to bear fruit in generations upon generations after you. And so in here in chapter 5, we kind of start seeing the beginning of those seeds being planted. And there's a few things that came up as I was reading. I have my notes right next to me, so we'll jump right into it. Let's get started. So chapter 5, the family of Adam. So let's read that first sentence. You know how I feel about that. So this is the book of the genealogy of Adam. The genealogy is like your family breakdown. Think of it like your family tree. Who came from who? You know, this begot that and that begot this. We got that. So family is important to God, and this is about the generations coming after Adam. Then you see in verse 2, Adam and Eve, or man and woman. Do you realize that God called them mankind? I want to read it. He says in verse 2, he created them male and female and blessed them and called them mankind in the day they were created. I think it was chapter 2. Was it chapter 2 where we were talking about that? How Adam and Eve as a collective were called man, short for mankind. So they weren't Adam and Eve yet. They were just man. So man was plural at that point. And I think this verse 2 kind of confirms that, where it says he created them, male and female, and blessed them and called them mankind in the day they were created. And so go down to 3 where it says Adam lived 130 years and begot a son in his own likeness after his image and named him Seth. So he was 130 years old. Do you notice that Adam did the same thing God did for him? The part where it says made in his likeness and in his image. Keep going down to verse 4 where Adam had sons and daughters, and he died at 930 years old. My goodness. I don't know if I want to live that long. Like, I want to live long. God, I want to live long now. I want to see my children have children, and God willing, see my children have children. But 930 years, my goodness. So if he died at 930, that means that he spent 130 years with Seth, right? Let's look and see. It says he created them, made them. Wait. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son and named him Seth. I'm back up in 4. For God has appointed another seed. And as for Seth, to him also was born a son. Okay, that's not that part. He created them male and female and blessed them and called them mankind in the day they were created. And Adam lived 130 years and begot a son in his own likeness after his image and named him Seth. After he begot Seth, the days of Adam were 800 years and he had sons and yes, I was right. Yeah. So by the time he was 130, that's when he first had Seth. And so 930, here comes our math. 930 minus 130 would make it 800. Wow, that's a really long time. That's a really long time. And Adam lived 130 years and begot a son in his own likeness after his image and named him Seth. After he begot Seth, the days of Adam were 800 years, and he begot sons and daughters. So all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. Can you imagine? I don't know why I'm getting stuck on this. I think why is because if you haven't read my book, so my dad passed when I was 15 or just turned 15, and he died relatively young. He was only in his early 40s. And so the idea that Seth got to spend 800 years with his dad is just like, wow. I can't imagine. My dad was my best friend. So that now sounds like heaven, So let's go down to 6. It says that Seth lived 105 years and begot Enosh. So Adam was with Enosh for 25 years before death. Right? Because compared to verses 7 and 8. Verse 9 says Enosh had children a lot younger than his father and his grandfather, though, because Enosh lived 90 years and begot Canaan. And then after he got Canaan, Enosh lived 815 years. All of these long years matter because there's going to come a point, I think it is in chapter 6, there's going to come a point where people aren't going to be living that long anymore. And you'll see why. But, So Adam had his first child when he was 130. Seth had his child when he was 105. Enosh had his child when he was 90. And then men started calling on God. And then Canaan had his child when he was 70. Mahalalel, I hope I'm saying that name right, had his child when he was 65. And then Jared went back up to 162. And then Enoch was at 65. And then there was Methuselah. Interesting. So it kind of went down. The years got younger with each generation. Isn't that similar to how it is now with us? This generation now, we're having less kids, but we're having them at an earlier point in life. In some regards, at least. I think it depends. There was a study, I wish I could find it. But there was a study that says nowadays, the more education a person pursues is the less likely it is for them to have multiple children in the home. And it's also the later for that person to decide to have children. But my grandma on one side had 4 kids. My grandma on my other side had 13. And get this, my grandpa had over 40 something kids. So it's just so interesting now because among my uncles and aunts, I think the max is probably 4 kids. But back in my grandpa's age, is 40 something. So it's so interesting just to see different patterns play out and how education and the advancement of technology and all those different things impacts the decisions we make down to our genealogy. It's interesting. But let's go down to, let's look at 21. It says that Enoch, remember that Enoch is Jared's son. Okay, so let me see. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 generations down. Or 5 generations down. Enoch lived 65 years and begot Methuselah. After he begot Methuselah, Enoch walked with God 300 years and had sons and daughters. Did you notice that everybody else, Adam, Seth, Enosh, Canaan, Mahalalel, Jared, all of them going all the way down, Enoch, who came after Jared, he is the only one where it's mentioned that he walked with God after having children. After having his firstborn, before having more children, he's the only one where it's mentioned that he walked with God. I think that's significant when we keep looking at the genealogy of what happened or what came out of Enoch. I think that is really, really important. But he's the only, everybody else, they had children. And then that was it. The Bible just keeps going. But there's a pause for Enoch. He had children, but then he went back to God. He walked with God. Wow. And here's how that ends. Going back to 21, Enoch lived 65 years and begot Methuselah. After he begot Methuselah, Enoch walked with God 300 years. So at this point, he's 365. And had sons and daughters. So all the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. I don't even know what that means. There's some people who assume that it means God just removed him because he knew what was coming ahead with the flood in Noah's generation. And so God just took him, took him up in the heavens with him. I don't know what it means. I'm still stuck at the fact that he got to walk with God for 300 years. Man, I could just imagine. But let's keep going. So that is with Enoch. And then let's go to 25. This is important because things start making a little bit of a turn. So Methuselah lived 187 years and begot Lamech. Where have you heard that name Lamech? Do you remember? Now, mind you, this is Lamech, Enoch's grandson. This is Enoch's grandson, okay? But the first time you heard Lamech was Cain's first son. Remember, his name was Lamech as well. But that Lamech, Cain's version of Lamech, that's the one that killed people. We couldn't remember we couldn't decipher if it was that he killed two people or if he killed one person. Because he said, Ada, this is him talking to his wife, Ada and Zala, hear my voice, wives of Lamech, listen to my speech, for I have killed a man for wounding me, even a young man for hurting me. So I couldn't tell, is it the same person and he's just calling him a man and then a young man in one, area, or is it just the same, or is it two different people? I don't know. But that Lamech that came from Cain went on to kill people. The Lamech from Enoch, let's listen to him. Let's see what became of him. This is Enoch's grandson. So verse 26, after Lamech was 182 years old, guess who he had? You should have read your Bible, so you should know. Lamech lived 182 years and had a son. And he called his name Noah. Everybody knows Noah and the ark. Saying, this one will comfort us concerning our work and the toil of our hands, because of the ground which the Lord has cursed. After he begot Noah, Lamech lived 595 years and had sons and daughters. So all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. And Noah was 500 years old, and Noah begot Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Let's get into it. So Lamech at 182 has Noah. And Noah, there's a prophecy on his life that says he's going to be the one to bring forth comfort during that whole curse of the ground, right? Noah has 3 sons, and it's the only lineage within this chapter of the Bible that names additional children besides the firstborn. From Adam, Seth, Enosh, Canaan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah. What's the other son's name? I don't even remember. But he's the only. Why did they name Adam's 3 sons? Why didn't they just name the firstborn and whoever came from them? It's important. It's important. But Noah has 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. But do you realize the generational patterns and culture from Enoch that carried over into Noah? I think this is why knowing your own genealogy is important, so you can reverse engineer what you are made of. Because a little bit of everyone is in us, good and bad. And we're going to read about that eventually with Noah. But I want to go back really quickly. I am still in awe at the fact that Enoch is the only one that walked with God for 300 years. What did they talk about? Like, what did God show him? What did God reveal? And then it said God took him. Isn't it interesting that there was also another Lamech? And this Lamech would go on to give Noah? Noah, the one who built the ark? Noah? Wow. Last time that we talked, we briefly mentioned the two trees, the analogy of the two trees, and the scriptures of the two trees, the tree of the tree of life, and then the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And then we compare that to family trees. And it's just showing the breakdown of the two families. Cain had a Lamech. So did Seth down the line. One Lamech went on to murder. The other Lamech went on to give us Noah. Seth was an appointed seed. Noah came to be the comfort in the midst of the storm, in the midst of the curse, in the midst of the trial and tribulations. And they're both happening at the same time. I mean, two very involved stories, two very detailed accounts of history happening at the same time, one seemingly for good and for the prosperity and overall advancement of mankind, and then the other, not so much. But they're both happening at the same time. And in the middle of all of that, Enoch walked with God. When we get over into chapter 6 and chapter 5, we're going to see some little things that makes me question, where did Noah learn that? Who taught him to be obedient? Who taught him how to do a burnt offering? Who gave him that knowledge? And it reminds me of this study that was completed, I forget where, but it was a study on trauma. If you've read my book, Living Stones, by the way, it's still available on Barnes & Noble. Just search Amoya or search Living Stones. But there was a study. If you've read my book, you know that I love to study trauma because I just love to see how the brain works and how it responds to antisocial things. I just love to see how resilient we are and how magnificent our brains are. And how it can be wired, and listen, I definitely geek out about all of that stuff. But there was this study on trauma. Did you know that trauma can bleed into your genetic makeup? That if a mom, while she is pregnant, experiences a severe amount of stress, that it changes the neurotic behavior in her brain to the point where it releases specific neurotransmitters down for the baby, to where the baby responds outside of the womb as if they experienced that trauma directly. But get this, it's the same way even if you are not a mom. If you are in a household that has different family parts, and within that family unit, there are people who have experienced trauma, that have caused them to see life completely differently, approach life completely differently. Just by you being exposed to that person, not even being exposed to the trauma directly, face to face. Just by you being exposed continuously to the person who's operating out of their reptilian brain, because that's what trauma does. It puts you into your reptilian brain and out of your frontal cortex where you're thinking logically. But did you know that just by that alone, you have an increased susceptibility to showing signs and symptoms of trauma? It literally changes your DNA makeup, your genetic makeup. Trauma. And then I started thinking to myself, if trauma could do that, if generational trauma is a thing, then that means generational healing is a thing. That means if I'm pregnant and I do the work to heal, my brain, according to this study, should have the same ability to rewire the activity and start producing positive neurotransmitters so that my child comes out predisposed to success, predisposed to healing. That means that even if I have experienced trauma, that if I do the work to heal myself, even if it's not a child from my own womb, but the people who are brought up with me, that the healing that I have found, that I've cultivated, it will inherently fall on them, and they will begin to see the world portrayed through victory. Do you realize how powerful that is? So when we get over into chapter 6 and 7 and we start seeing Noah doing some things that it's like, where did you learn that from? I'm thinking to myself, oh, he got that from Seth. Yeah. And what he didn't get from Seth, he got from Adam. What he didn't get from Adam, he got from Enosh and Canaan and Mahalalel and Jared and Enoch and Methuselah and Lamech. There are some gifts in you. There is some power in you that you didn't even earn. There are some fruits that you're going to eat from that were planted way before you were even thought of by man. But God knew you would need it. And so he allowed for your ancestors to experience some things that laid seeds that would not produce fruit until such an appointed time as now. It's the other way too. And that's the tough part. That there's another Lamech from Cain. Where seeds were planted during Cain's generation. Seeds to bring you down, seeds to make you question yourself, seeds to make you feel like you're not qualified, you're not good enough. Who says you? But take hope in this. We don't hear from Lamech. Not the Lamech that came from Cain. But after Lamech was Noah. After the Lamech from Methuselah came Noah. Noah, who is a promise of comfort. Take faith, knowing that God knew what you were exposed to. He knew what seeds were planted. And so he sent Noah, the one who will comfort us concerning our work and the toil of our hands. God is faithful in giving us Noah. No matter what generational curses, generational patterns, generational habits, no matter what it is, know that there were two Lamechs. Know that there were two Enochs, but only one mattered. I encourage you to think that you're the one that comes from the line of Enoch, who walked with God,